Hello guys, today we are going to look at 3 ways of adding CSS to our HTML document. You can add CSS code to HTML documents in 3 ways. The first one is inline CSS, that is adding CSS to HTML using style attributes. The second one is internal CSS, adding CSS code within the head tag of your HTML document. And the third one is external CSS, adding extra CSS file outside your HTML element, outside your HTML document to your HTML file. That is, you are going to create an external CSS file. Then after creating the external CSS file, we are going to include it. We are going to include the file in the HTML document. So now let's start coding. Now the first one is, this is CSS class, so I won't emphasize more on HTML here. So now let's create just a single HTML document using heading tag. I'll use h1 tag. So now this is heading tag or heading element. Just name it heading element. So now I want to add CSS code to this heading element. But before that, let's save this file and run it in the browser. So let's run it in the browser. Where is the file? Adding HTML to CSS. Now let's run it in the browser. So now I'm going to run it with Google Chrome. As you can see, this is heading element that has been displayed in the browser. So you see this HTML element, no color, no alignment, the size doesn't reduce, nothing like that, no formatting, so nothing of a such. But if you want to make some changes to your HTML content, maybe you want to give it a color, or you want to give it a background color, or you want to align the elements, or you want to change the size. All these things is done with CSS. That's why we said CSS is used for presentation. So now the first thing is how we use inline CSS to change the color of the element. I'll use inline CSS. So whenever you want to use inline CSS, you go towards the open tag of your HTML element and you use what we call style attributes. Style attributes. The style is equal to, in our previous lesson, we talk about attributes. You can check that video if you don't know anything about HTML attributes. So you are going to use style attributes. Then within the style attributes, you are going to define your HTML, your CSS properties. So now I want to define the color properties. Color. I want to give it the color of blue. Now let's save the file once again. Let's save the file once again. So now reload the page. As you can see, the blue color has been applied. So that's that on inline CSS. So just study the way I added the CSS. I created a style attribute. After creating the style attribute, I use the color property which I give it the value of blue. So now that's that on inline CSS. So whenever you want to work on internal CSS, you are going to add your CSS code to within your head document in the HTML document. So now let's create another element using p tag. This is a text paragraphs. So now let's use internal CSS to apply some changes to this paragraph. But before that, let's save this file and reload. Let's save this file and reload. So as you can see, the paragraph has been added. So I want to change the size of this paragraph. I want to change the color of the paragraph as well. So now using inline CSS. So the first thing is whenever you want to add in internal, using internal CSS, sorry. So the first thing is whenever you want to add internal CSS to your HTML document, you add the internal CSS within the head tag, the head open and head close tag. So I've created the HTML head tag. So within the head tag, my inline internal CSS will be within the tag. So now the next thing is the next thing is whenever you want to add internal CSS within the head tag, you use the style tag. There's also a style tag used to add CSS to your within your HTML document. And the style tag will stay within the head. Within the head tag, as you can see, this is the head tag, and I've added my style tag within the tag, within the head tag. So now let me change the paragraph this thing. I want to format the paragraph. So there is something we call selector in CSS. The selector will give me opportunity to make some changes to my HTML element. So the selector for this paragraph is P. That is the tag. As you can see, it is P tag. So the selector is P, which denotes the paragraph. Then curly brackets. Then within the curly bracket, your CSS code will be within the bracket. That is the property and the value. So the property here is a color and the value is red. So I want to change the font size as well. Font size is also another CSS property. The font size, now I want to give it a size of 1.5 EMs. So you understand what we mean about EMs as time goes on. Is a unit in CSS. So now I've saved the file. So let's run it again. As you can see, this is the initial output. So now the text file, the text size would change and the color as well. So can you see the size has been changed and the color as red has been applied to the color of the paragraph. So that is that on inline and internal CSS. What if you want to create external CSS? As the name implies, external, that is the file, the CSS file or the CSS code is going to be outside the HTML document. Then you will now include that file into the words, into the HTML document. So I want to create a new file. And the file I will be adding HTML to CSS. So now I'll give it an extension of .css. This is a CSS file, not HTML file. So I'm giving it an extension of .css. .css. That is, we want to deal with external CSS. So the extension will be in .css. So that is that. So now let's add some CSS code. But before that, let's create another HTML element. Let me create an element of list, unordered list. I want to create an unordered list document. Within the list, I'll just specify 3 items. Let's see, let's specify fashion. So let's specify shirts. So the list item, you can give it any list item you like. Trouser, and another one is sweater. So sweater. So that is that. Let's apply CSS code to these elements. But before that, let me save let me resave this file. So our list item has been added. So now I want to change the size of I want to apply some CSS or some styling to the HTML document, our list items, as you can see. So now, but before that, what I'm going to do is whenever you want to write a CSS code, in an external CSS file, you don't need to add any tag. You don't need to just style the CSS code straight away. So the selector for the items, the selector is on ordered list. Selector is on ordered list. So now let's give it a width of Let's give it a width of 100 pixel. Let's give it a width of 100%. Let's give it a background color of blue, or let's give it a background color of purple. So a background color of purple, a background color of purple. Let's give it a color of white. Let's give it a color of white. That is the text inside the text inside the list will be white. That is the shirt, trouser, sweater would be white. So now let's give it a text align. That is the items, the list of items in the unordered list. We want to align it to the center. We want to align those items to the center. I want to give those items a font size of 30 pixel. So let's give it a font weight of bold. Initially, the text are not bold, but now I want to give it a font weight of bold. So now let's stop here. Now let's save the file. Let's save the CSS file. And one thing is, and this list item too is also another selector. List item, in our ordered list, we have list items here. List items, which we include all the items in the list. So the list item is another selector. So now in this selector here, I will copy the font size. Let me cut the font size from this uh unordered list item and paste it into the list item selector. So let me cut it and I will paste it within the list item selector. Yes, that has been pasted. So now I want to change the font size to 30 pixel. This also is not a font size, a font weight of bold, a font weight of bold. So that is that. So now let's save this file once again. Let's save this file. So now, if you want to include the external CSS to your HTML document as well, it's also done within the head tag. Yeah, it's done within the head tag. So to include CSS file to your HTML document, you specify it within the head tag using the style, using the style, using this. Sorry, I think I've done a mistake. Using the link where is style sheet. Then you specify the file using href attribute. Href is equal to, specify the file using href attribute is equal to adding, then the name of the file, html to css. Then you close it. You close the tag. Then this is the way of adding. This is the name of the file. And after the name of the file, we haven't added the extension, which is .css. We add the extension as well, which is .css. So link rel style sheet, that is telling us that this file is a style sheet, is a CSS file. Then the href will point towards it will point to the file name or the file path, and you add the extension at the end of the file name. So I think you have discussed the href attribute. Href is also attribute. You have discussed the href attribute in our previous lesson when we talked about attributes in CSS. So now let's save, when we talk about attributes in HTML, most of the time you'll be dealing with attributes in your HTML document. So we have done a comprehensive class on HTML attributes. So href is an attribute used to target the CSS file. So now let's save it. Let's save this HTML document once again and let's run our code. Hmm, I think something is wrong. The 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 properties or the properties isn't applied. I think something is wrong. Link well style sheets. Let me say once again. I think I've done a mistake in the spelling. As you can see now, the properties has been applied. The background color of the unordered list is purple. The color of those items, the list item in the unordered list is white. The font size has changed as well. This list item, I want to apply a CSS property whereby I don't want these bullets. I don't want the bullets. So there is a property called list style item. So the list style item, I will set it to none. So all this thing, as we move on, list style type. So it is not list style item, it is list style type. I want to remove that bullet to none. So CSS is a very interesting language when it comes to front end web development. So I've saved it now. Let me reload once again. As you can see, the the bullets are gone. So all these things is done with CSS. Yes. So HTML to create content, CSS for presentation. That is to add more, to make your content looks more attractive. Either to give it the color, font size, either to align or to change the layout or positioning and so on and so forth. So now the last one which I'm going to do is this heading tag. I want to move it to the center again. The heading tag, I want to move it to the center. We applied CSS to this heading tag using inline CSS. So now let me apply another property called test align. Test align. I want to align it to the center. Test align center. So now let's save. So now let's save this file once again. So now reload. The heading, as you can see, the heading element has been moved to the center. So we discussed the three ways of adding CSS to our HTML document. The first one is inline CSS. Whenever you use inline CSS, you apply the CSS code within the HTML attributes, which is the style attribute. The second one is internal CSS. You define your CSS code within your HTML document using style tag. The third one is external CSS. That is, you create an external or separate CSS file, then you include it to the HTML document you want to apply the CSS code to. So out of these three, the external CSS is commonly used and is most applicable because you can add a CSS file or a CSS code to several HTML documents. Let's assume we have 15 to 20 pages and you want to apply the same changes to all those pages. It will be very tedious to be writing CSS code one by one. You just create the external CSS file, then you include that file inside the HTML document. Yes, so that is how to add CSS to HTML documents. Thank you very much.